Let's welcome to the virtual stage Mele Kyari, NNPC Group Managing Director. He joins me now. Mele, if you are there, let's just...
Yes, I'm with you, Manus.
Mele, how are you? Great to see you this morning. Colourful as ever, sir.
Thank you. Great to see you today.
Great to have you with us. Mele, we've got a very global oil audience here today, and so it's good to get a sense from you. We're on the longest run up in this market in 2 years. Are we getting ahead of ourselves?
Yes, indeed. It's tough, and I think the short way of putting it is to say it's tough. The road ahead is also tough and difficult. As you can see clearly, every permutation around what the demand and the supply will look like has kind of not straight and not easy to understand by all. But what is obvious today is that demand will pick up, not to the levels that we will all expect. I do not see demand coming back to the pre-COVID level in anywhere earlier than the end of 2022. That's very unlikely because of several things that are going on today. New habits have come up, irrespective of whether or not we are through with the COVID-19. There are habits that people won't change anymore. Transportation needs have changed. People have learned how to work virtual. People have stopped going to work just by choice, not just by COVID anymore, COVID inspired. So I see a clear decline, particularly in transportation fuel consumption, and especially in form of the aviation fuel consumption. This is very difficult to come back. But the other part of it is that, new developments are coming up in the sense that you're seeing a new middle class coming up in many countries, including my country and West Africa and Africa for that matter. You're seeing greater urbanization that is not foreseen. You see a number of cities are growing, a number of people are coming out of poverty, and that means, more and more demand for energy, either in form of transportation fuel or other forms of fuel requirements. So we see that will balance out for the natural decision that people have made not to come up. So I see a situation where some level of marginal increase at the end of this year, but certainly not beyond.
Okay, but and this is pushing the reset in demand or the reattainment of pre-COVID levels out to the back of 2022. So let's just consider some of the risks here. I caught up with Sahil Al-Mazrui, His Excellency, here in the UAE. We listened to him. He had a warning, a very clear warning over to the shale producers: do not pump. Do you expect, or do not pump at will, I should say. Do you expect a lot of shale supply to return at these prices, Mele?
Because the shale supplies clearly won't do well below a $45 oil. We're beyond the $25 oil. So there's really need a great incentive for the shale oil to come back on the deck. But the shale oil producers are also aware that this situation is not long-term. There are a number of capacities that are shut in today from the non-shale sources that can be easily kicked into the market. And if that happens, you lose money. So nobody wants to lose money. So they'll be very cautious. Without any caution by His Excellency, that response from the shale producer will be very, very marginal.
So let's talk about the OPEC Plus deal, Mele, because it's got significant significance for Nigeria. OPEC Plus more or less on pause, Saudi 1 million barrels unilateral cut. What does the pause button mean for you at NNPC and Nigeria?
It's a very convenient balance for us because, first of all, you may be aware that by mid of April, Nigeria was able to attain crude oil and condensate production of up to 2.49 million barrels per day. That's huge, looking at our capacity. But that now is now down to close to 1.6 million barrels, including the condensate production. A substantial decrease in our capacity, obviously translating to a drop in government revenues. But we're also aware that when you take it to the market and you sell it like water, that's not what you want to do. And obviously the OPEC Plus understanding that to cut the production is the right thing to do because that market balance is required by all, including the consumers. So we see a challenge to our revenue sources, but we see a better picture of getting the best out of this situation by complying with this. So for us as a country, it's a balanced situation. We're very happy to
Can I ask you there in terms of the compliance? Your number for this quarter, January through to March, is 1.517 million. Mele, are you confident that you're going to remain compliant? You'll hit compliance in this quarter?
Absolutely. We're actually at some over compliance level in November. I'm sure that the data shows that. So we have no difficulty remaining compliant. What we are doing different today is to increase our sources of condensate supply, which is necessarily not curtailed by the OPEC Plus code. So that's where we're going. We're looking at new assets that can produce more condensate into the market.
What sort of scale of condensate do you expect then to produce this year?
Yeah, today we're at 270 to 350,000 barrels per day.
Okay, and where can I get
between these two numbers?
Okay, compensation cuts. Can you update the market in terms of the compensation cuts, maybe that you've been asked to do, or those that you have delivered, sir?
That's the point I made. We're already in conformity, including the compensation cuts. That's the point I was making.
Okay, my apologies on that. I want to pivot to the big story, which is the new US administration, the new Biden administration. Now, I know you and I have had chats, cups of tea, you give me the odd hat, and you said, look, we're keen to engage with the Biden administration. What does that mean? And what do you think Biden is going to mean for the oil industry?
Yes, for us, we're very conscious of the disposition of the Biden administration, which is not different from what we want to do and where we are going, which is to pay attention to the environment, making sure that oil is a benefit and not a cost to anyone, particularly for developing countries. And there are rooms for doing that, especially by reducing flares in many oil-producing countries, reducing our carbon footprint, which is exactly what we are trying to do today in our country. We have deep engagement with the Department of Energy to support us in carrying out some infrastructure projects that are clearly designed to bring down carbon footprints in our country. So we're very excited to work with them to making sure that those initiatives which are clearly designed to cut down carbon footprints of our business, and also to ensure that in most of these resource-dependent countries, including our own, where attention to infrastructure, getting people out of it is very primary to global peace and security. So we know that the Biden administration will support us in that direction.
Okay, so that frames how you want to engage with the administration. What the market wants to get a sense is from you and the people that you talk to. The Biden administration, do you expect the Biden administration to be as warm to global oil and energy as Trump was last summer?
Yes, indeed, in a different perspective, because I'm very convinced that the Biden administration will be interested in carrying out projects and production that will reduce carbon footprint. And that's what we're doing.
Obviously, all eyes are going to be on whatever Biden does with Iran and the JCPOA in terms of rejoining that agreement. Do you think that sets up a tougher job for OPEC Plus if Biden re-enters the JCPOA and we look at more Iranian barrels?
It's all likelihood is that we can have a better situation today managing those relationships. That's our hope and our expectation, so that the market itself can balance.
Now, compliance is probably the burning issue. You've confirmed where you stand on that. With the deal that some would say is helping the market tighten, prices are rising, we're ramping higher. Do you think overall that there's a risk of compliance fatigue with this kind of a rally on our hands?
It's very unlikely, because for many countries, including my country, compliance is the obvious choice that we have to make. And of course, managing reservoirs, as we all know, is not what you can just change your mind and you cut down production tomorrow and come back the next day. So as a matter of technical consideration, that you know that you need a transition to get out of this. So I'm not sure anyone will bother to worry about non-compliant, because compliance serves our interest today and also our technical interest.
Tell me this, we caught up with His Royal Highness Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman, and he said this was a sovereign unilateral decision to cut 1 million barrels a day. After that, did the Saudis communicate with the various members, perhaps that were less than compliant last year, and put a bit more pressure and say, look, we've done this, please make sure you comply?
We don't have any issue with that, because we're already compliant, so there's really nothing to ask.
What's the biggest risk, Mele? Well answered. You're at the front of the classroom there on that. What's the biggest risk, Mele, for 2021?
2021 is getting people to get back to work in the normal way, which is very, very unlikely, and it will affect our business, globally. And getting back to work means, getting back to workplace. Workplaces are now challenged, and most people don't want to go back to the workplaces. So, and also that also means that people don't want to travel. Travel is very weak. Therefore, you are going to have shortening in demand, both in transportation fuel and in aviation fuel, and that's a big challenge for our industry.
But isn't this the essence of what we need to grapple with, Mele, which is the long-term trends that will develop? We don't know what they are, but you've mentioned mobility now 3 times in this engagement. Is that where you see the biggest outcome post-COVID?
Yes, it is, because, and that's why we saw that challenge and difficulty that the world and our business will face. So we're going to gas. We're going to do more gas, and that will solve the puzzle, because you can take gas to homes easily without coming out of your houses.
So where does that put us in the energy evolution story? If we think of the audience that's tuned in here today, we're trying to work out whether Bernard Looney's got it right at BP and whether the rest of them should be catching up. So what does it do to the energy transition story in that case?
You'll see more presence of gas in the energy mix as we go forward, much faster than all the forecasts that you have seen. And that's where everybody's going. The market is showing that. And we're also taking that direction, and we're increasing our gas domestic and also export production very seriously. Everybody's doing that. So whoever is not in gas today will be out of business, very likely.
How do you see the OPEC Plus institution evolving at the end of this agreement? What do you think happens next?
If you mean the non-OPEC Plus members becoming members of OPEC, that's not necessary because it's really informed interest of the global market for that balancing to take place. So you probably end up seeing more members in this platform and participating in this quota business, probably including the United States business.
You think the US will come into OPEC Plus?
It's possible in a different way.
In what way? Let's pursue that. You can't throw me that, Mele, and then not expect a follow.
Yeah, the way to do is for the US businesses, our partners, for example, the large producers in the United States will see that when you produce more into the market that cannot take your production, you're better off reducing that production. So you don't have to announce that you're part of any coalition, you just reduce your production.
Can I just spring the other way, which is, just bear with me, which is you, Nigeria, want more freedom, as I asked Sahil Al-Mazrui. Could you see a construct of where Nigeria steps out of OPEC and lives in the OPEC Plus world?
They're one and the same thing today, because it's all about balancing the market and making sure the production supply doesn't exceed demand. And it's the same business, so there will be no incentive for Nigeria or any country to leave the OPEC basket.
Thought on this. It's about balancing the market and investment, and you talk about the long-term implications. Just to get a sense from you on this, what's the challenge for Nigeria, you think, and the West African energy investment from geopolitics? And I suppose, Mele, what I mean there is the instability that COVID has brought to geopolitics. How will that play into the bigger investment narrative for Nigeria and West Africa, sir?
What we see today is we see it as an opportunity here. Nigeria has the largest reserve of oil and gas in the whole of Africa. Not only that, in Africa today, you have a very, very fast growing middle class. Economies are expanding, populations are growing. And of course, also Nigeria is very centrally placed in the geopolitics of Africa in terms of distance to markets and distance to consumption. Consumers. So we see this as an opportunity for producing more oil, becoming the hub for petrochemicals and for refining, so that the supply to West Africa comes from Nigeria and most of African countries. So we see for us as a country as an opportunity. We don't see it as a difficulty that is creating. We're already seeing that opportunity. A number of partnerships are going on, and a number of large-scale gas projects are going on, a number of participation and engagements are going on between us and some of our partner countries. And everybody's looking forward to us to fill that gap of distance which exists in the market today, where refineries all over the world are shutting down, and where is that supply going to come from? And that is where we're going. In 2 to 3 years to come, we'll be a net exporter of petroleum in a sense that will dominate the market and will possibly reverse the flow of trade from Nigeria to other countries.
Mele, time has run against us. I would have liked to have got 1 or 2 more questions in, but the clock ticks down. It's great to see you. I have it on great assurity that I am getting a new hat from you. Sean has been measured for his, and I'm sure he'll pass along his measurements at the end. I expect mine in the post. Look, fantastic to get this opportunity to talk to you, Mele, today. Mele Kyari, NNPC, Group MD there. Thank you very much for your time.